What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, putting America first, second, and third. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome to our show today. It is Tuesday, January 26, 2021, getting into the week here, getting close to the end of the month here. And of course, remember, next month is Valentine's Day. The cards and candies are already on the store shelves. So if you have a significant other, you need to make your plans accordingly. Anyway, we've got a lot to talk about today. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble. And we're going to do news until we run out of news. Then we're going to open up the phone line so you can call in and have your say about what's going on in the world today. All right, as we mentioned on yesterday's show, the House has delivered its single impeachment article against former President Donald Trump to the Senate last night, thereby setting the stage for a February 8th trial. Now, just 3 Senate Republicans were present during the formal delivery of the article: Mitch McConnell, Mitt Romney, and Roger Marshall. The senators will get sworn in as jurors on today, according to a previous statement by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, while both the impeachment managers who will argue the House Democrats' case and Trump's defense team will have time to draft and file legal briefs. And already, his fraudulency may have put the kibosh on the whole thing, because Joe Biden doesn't think the Senate is going to convict Donald Trump. They don't have the votes. Remember, it has to be a 2/3 vote, which means 17 Republican senators have to vote to convict, and that's not likely to happen here, no matter how much blackmail and bribery is going on in the back channels. Now, because Chief Justice of the Supreme Court Roberts has basically said he wants nothing to do with this impeachment trial, Senator Patrick Leahy, who's President pro tempore of the Senate, will preside over the impeachment trial. And Leahy is 80. Both parties traditionally choose their eldest member to serve in the pro tempore role, which is essentially a backup for the president of the Senate whenever they gain a majority in the body, that being, of course, Kamala Harris right now. So Leahy will be acting as a judge, jury, executioner, who knows, whatever. Getting on to what's going on in our society, there's an article over at Blacklisted News talking about the Great Reset and the rise of the techno-fascist system and how it is really in your face. And it really is. It has been for quite some time here. And apparently, journalist Leah Holman is fearlessly reporting on the World Economic Forum's Great Reset and calling it out for what it is, a blatant in-your-face assault. Davos, as you're probably aware, began yesterday. We'll be talking about that a little bit later in the show. So we're seeing this assault on free speech by America's largest tech companies, and it's about more than just stifling political dissent. It's about advancing the agenda of the globalists with designs on seizing the world economy for their own personal benefit, not yours. Now, former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard put out a video today saying that these proposed domestic terrorism laws directly undermine freedom. And she's absolutely right about that. If you'll remember what the original USA Patriot Act did to our freedoms, this is just going to be worse. Article coming on out of end.co saying that America, what's happening to America, Americans are wondering, people around the world are wondering, and it's basically saying America is already a failed state. And in order to survive its collapse, it's becoming an authoritarian one. Now, they're predicting in this article that it's just 60 days until the final stage of social collapse, in which the society goes full-blown authoritarian permanently, and it's looking increasingly likely that's going to happen. I don't know that I agree with that prediction. It's definitely pushing in that way, but I'm starting to see Americans, who normally wouldn't be involved, they're pushing back here. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the new Patriot Party, pardon me, and they opened up a website that we linked to the other day, but I noted that the website, while it had some videos of Donald Trump, it didn't actually say that it had any connection with him. And today, President Donald Trump's campaign team is disavowing any affiliation with the Patriot Party. They apparently filed a report with the Federal Election Commission saying that they have no connection with that whatsoever. So be very, very careful of people fundraising for the Patriot Party saying you're going to help Donald Trump because they are definitely not affiliated. Meanwhile, Trump has established an office of the former president down in Florida. So I guess his post-presidency is now official. And this office will be responsible for managing Trump's correspondence, public statements, appearances, and official activities. The office will seek to advance the interests of the United States and carry on the agenda of the Trump administration through advocacy, organizing, and public activism. All right, sounds like a good thing to be doing. Another article here, this is from blabber.buzz, and they're talking about Liz Cheney. Now, Liz Cheney voted to impeach Trump, and she is taking a lot of flack for that. And they're talking about removing her from her leadership position in the pardon me, in Congress. And apparently Florida Republican Representative Matt Gaetz is scheduled to rally with local Republicans in Cheyenne on Thursday to urge the Wyoming Republican Congresswoman to step down as a result of her voting in favor of Trump's second impeachment, and basically saying Wyoming can definitely do better. Now, Senator Ted Cruz has reintroduced an amendment imposing term limits on members of Congress. And of course, this one's going to go down in flames like it did before. Anything that limits the power and prestige and wealth of members of Congress doesn't really stand a chance of passing, but it was great that he's at least making the efforts. Now, we talked about this House Resolution 1, which basically cements in place the election fraud mechanism that we saw used this last year. And basically, according to this article in Zero Hedge, what they've done is they've basically released a roadmap to one-party rule, because as long as they've got control of that election fraud machine, which Biden actually bragged about on the campaign trail, remember? As long as they have control of that election fraud machine, the GOP is going to be helpless to turn anything around. Again, it's a one-party system like the former Soviet Union, which ultimately didn't work out all that well for the people of the Soviet Union and ultimately for the Soviet Union itself. Okay, do you remember Walkaway? This was an organization of people disenfranchised with the Democratic Party. It was founded by Brandon Straka, and apparently Brandon Straka was seen at the U.S. Capitol back on January 6th, and the FBI just arrested him. Apparently, the walkaway movement attracted tens of thousands of people, which made Straka a target of the Marxist regime. In an interview with BBC Newsnight Saturday, former Fox News anchor and current podcast host Megyn Kelly placed part of the blame for the breach of the Capitol on the corporate media, saying that the media hated former President Trump so much they lost their objectivity, prompting a complete lack of trust in them from the public. Now, if you have Amazon Prime, there's a movie there called Bombshell, and it's about Megyn Kelly and these other Fox News readers in their struggles against Roger Ailes, who basically was treating them like his own personal harem. And it's a well-made movie. It's got a stellar cast. It's definitely worth tuning in to see that one. Stephanie Rose Spalding over at the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs, and she's a vice chancellor for equity, diversity, and inclusion. Basically says white people were responsible for the Capitol riot and demands that they fix their freaking families. More of that anti-white sentiment that's out there. Now, interestingly enough, back in 2011, there were unions that stormed the Wisconsin Capitol building. And at that time, Nancy Pelosi said it was an impressive show of democracy. Well, apparently she doesn't hold that same view for what happened back on January 6th. Now, Riley Williams is one of the Capitol rioters who's accused of stealing Nancy Pelosi's laptop. And prosecutors want to completely ban her from the internet because she is encouraging people to destroy evidence related to the riots back on January 6th. I think that counts as prior restraint. Senator Josh Hawley yesterday slammed the Democratic senators who filed an ethics complaint against him and Senator Ted Cruz over their electoral college objections on January 6th. He continues to defend his decision to object to electoral votes during the joint session to certify President his fraudulency's November win. Hawley aired his grievances in 2 letters sent Monday. In one of the letters, he called for the Senate Ethics Committee to investigate the 6 Democrats who filed the complaint against him and Cruz, accusing the senators of filing an unprecedented, frivolous, and improper ethics complaint without citing any relevant evidence or offering any good faith argument. This is basically the congressional version of throwing spitballs at each other. Now, over in California, we've been talking about this. There's a recall campaign to remove Governor Gavin Newsom. And he's basically, his public face is he's laughing it off, saying it's unrealistic, it's going to succeed. Well, Governor Newsom, the recall campaign has almost reached its required threshold to force a statewide ballot. And apparently over the weekend, recall organizers said they've gathered 1.2 million of the required 1.5 million signatures needed by March 17 to qualify for the ballot. Now, by state law, petition sponsors have to gather the signatures of 12% of the voter turnout in California's previous statewide election, which is around 1,495,000 names. Now, Rescue California, one of the 2 groups behind the campaign, says they want to get 2 million signatures to account for the fact that many of the signatures will certainly be challenged. CNN, Brian Stelter and former Facebook official are basically revealing the regime's next move to silence political dissidents. And apparently the globalist American empire is amping up censorship efforts in the wake of the disputed 2020 election. So far, the most blatant act of such tech totalitarianism has been the banning of the sitting president from most major social media platforms. This is hardly the final step in their plans. Not content with merely banning Trump, they're not going to stop until all of his allies are banned as well, and all of his supporters are identified as enemies of the state. It's getting rough out there. A non-peer-reviewed paper that examined right-wing echo chambers on YouTube labels a variety of commentators as far-right, including Dilbert cartoonist Scott Adams. And researchers are already planning to revise the study because they used an algorithm to try and determine who was far right, and obviously the algorithm has got issues. I'm a big Dilbert fan, and no, it's not right wing. Anyway, feedback on the paper entitled Evaluating the Scale, Growth, and Origins of Right-Wing Echo Chambers on YouTube led the researchers to plan a paper revision before seeking official publication in an academic journal. Story coming on out from the Gateway Pundit. corporate media and the White House are busy trying to manipulate the public into believing that his fraudulency is actually adored by millions. But it turns out more than half of Joe Biden's Twitter followers are fakes, and they were created just in January. So it's more propaganda. Now, Twitter has permanently banned MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell over purported election misinformation. In other words, he refuses to go along and say that the election was open, honest, and transparent, because it wasn't. Okay, so Twitter permanently banned Lindell on Monday night, and Dominion Voting Systems is also threatening Lindell with the defamation lawsuit on this. But getting on back to Twitter, child porn is still okay over there. Apparently, there is a new lawsuit calling on Google to drop Telegram from the App Store. And basically, this is after they got rid of Parler, Parler is still on its new server being brought back to life. But a California court has been asked to force Google to remove Telegram from its Play Store over claims the Messenger app is used to incite violence. Well, you could make the same claim about SMS and, text messaging that's inherent into the cell phone. Okay. So apparently the complaint notes that Google suspended Parler and basically says Telegram should receive the exact same treatment. Speaking of corporate media here, and again with a reference to that movie on Amazon Prime, Bombshell, top CBS executives have been suspended after an LA Times expose of widening allegations of racist and sexist conduct. And apparently these two top CBS executives have been suspended. Doesn't mean they're fired, just means they're suspended. But Peter Dunn, president of CBS television stations, apparently denigrated black news anchor Uki Washington, a distant relative of Denzel Washington, at Philadelphia CBS station KYW, calling him just a jive guy and criticizing his dancing. So... And, you guys at the top of these networks, I think you've let your egos get the better of you, both in terms of your behavior towards subordinates and this attitude that you are in control of what the public thinks rather than the policymakers. All righty. There's a video put out by Andy Ngo, and he's talking about the overall goal of Antifa and why all of a sudden they seem to be turning on Democrats. And apparently Antifa has been holding protests at a bookstore in Portland in an attempt to get the upcoming book Unmasked, Inside Antifa's Radical Plan to Destroy Democracy, pulled from the shelves. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party in Oregon is trying to frame the destruction of their headquarters on the Republican Party, even though it was Antifa that smashed up the headquarters. But they're out there inferring somehow Republicans are to blame. I think truth has become such a valuable commodity that our government is economizing it. All righty, over on the West Coast, San Francisco to be specific, apparently there was the 17th annual Walk for Life over the weekend, sending out the message that abortion hurts women and certainly hurts the unborn. And about 2,000 people showed up. There were no pro-abortion protest events to counter that. So good for them. All right, let's talk a little bit. Well, actually, we're coming up here on our first commercial break. And, well, I'm going to go ahead and start this story and come back to it. Apparently, the World Health Organization has issued new guidance on the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine, warning pregnant women not to take it. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show here. And again, a friendly reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network intends to go on giving the American people good information, keeping them fully informed so that they can make good choices. And we need your help to keep doing that. And you can see the forces arrayed against independent media right now. It's getting very, very dicey out there. So a heartfelt thanks to those of you who've been supporting Republic Broadcasting, and for those of you who haven't, the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. And of course, all of this information is at the top of republicbroadcasting.org. All right, getting on back to COVID-19, we started this story before the commercial break. The World Health Organization is warning women not to take the Moderna warning pregnant women, rather, not to take the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine, and saying they should not get the jab unless they're at really high risk of exposure. And so, again, there have been concerns raised in Europe over the vaccination's effects on women and women's reproduction here. Now, we reported earlier that Merck has basically scrapped their COVID vaccines, and basically they came out with a paper announcing that they were putting their focus onto medications that would offer protection if the immune system went into overdrive from the infection. But in that paper, it said that it's actually more effective to get the virus and recover than to get the vaccines. And we know already that the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, they're already out there admitting they won't stop you from getting COVID-19. They won't stop you from passing it on. They're promising it will make the symptoms less severe, but it's kind of hard to quantify exactly what that means. Now, Biden is out there saying that he's going to, that everyone who wants a vaccine will have it in the spring. Biden is pledging to vaccinate at least 200 million people in 5 months, and says we can be well on our way to herd immunity by summer. We shall see. Meanwhile, up in New York, they have badly missed their COVID vaccination target. And apparently they were forced to cancel something like 20,000 appointments over logistical issues that were blamed on McKesson, who's Moderna's partner for distributing the vaccine. New York City admitted it will delay opening vaccination megasites like Yankee Stadium and Citi Field as shortages of vaccines leave the city shorthanded. So apparently in New York State, there are about 19,000 designated first doses left, and officials are expecting another 107,000 more this week. Okay, now the CDC has changed the COVID criteria. They were criticized because the earlier criteria seemed to inflate the number of fatalities by a factor of 10. And now the CDC has changed the COVID criteria back to something a little bit more honest, which means we're going to hear in the news, COVID fatalities are down, COVID cases are down, all hail his fraudulency, Joe Biden. And, it was a scare campaign. It was a scare campaign for financial gain and for political gain. Now, apparently, the super COVID discovered in Brazil has now been detected in the United States. This happened up in Minnesota, and it's a highly contagious variant, and they're saying the vaccines may not be able to protect against it. Over in the Netherlands, they've had a third night of anti-curfew riots. And at least 150 people were arrested last night in Amsterdam and Rotterdam. Stores were looted and vandalized, and Rotterdam Mayor Ahmed Aboutaleb signed an emergency order last night giving law enforcement the powers to arrest protesters. Out in California, the authorities are still investigating the case of a person who died a few hours after receiving a COVID-19 vaccine last week. This happened in Placer County. We did mention it before, and it happened last Thursday. And they're still not releasing which vaccine the person received. They're still not confirming the vaccine had anything to do with it, but the person in question was in good health with no comorbidity issues here. Over in Norway, in the wake of this death of elderly patients that were vaccinated against COVID-19, health authorities are trying to allay safety concerns. Oh my goodness, we're at another commercial break. We'll be right back after these two words. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking about COVID-19, and over in Germany, Chancellor Merkel was in a meeting and somebody leaked the details from the meeting. And apparently during this meeting, Merkel admitted she's lost control of the COVID crisis and is saying the threat posed by the new coronavirus variants spreading at a faster pace than the original meant the country was sitting on a powder keg. And she said things could easily turn for the worse in coming weeks. Merkel also said the reopening of the retail sector planned for mid-February may now be delayed. They're also talking about scaling back air traffic. Britain's Glastonbury Festival, one of the world's most prominent pop music events, has been canceled for a second year in a row because of the coronavirus. Over in China, blaming COVID, they've started erecting border walls with Myanmar and Vietnam. And apparently, this is stirring up a little bit of controversy as to what's going on. But apparently, one of the projects, the one that's in Vietnam, it's a 4.5 meter high iron fence topped with barbed wire. It was originally built between 2012 and 2017. It stretches 12 kilometers, and they are now extending it. Okay, article coming on out of Zero Hedge. Yet another study has come on out showing that lockdowns don't actually work. And it's just, you know, the advocates for the lockdowns continue to insist they save lives. The actual experience suggests otherwise. And research just keeps showing, no, they're really not working at all. Out in Carlsbad, California, they have just declared no more lockdowns, and that may be the start of a national trend. That would be a really, really good thing. All righty, Joe Biden has signed an executive order to begin testing COVID-19 vaccine passports. So they're trying to figure some way to coerce you into getting the vaccine, even though it's against the Nuremberg Code and various treaties and laws to force you to take medical treatment you don't want. But they're trying to figure out ways to just, well, you know, get the shot. You know, you're not going to be allowed to fly if you don't get the shot. You're not going to be allowed to go to work if you don't get the shot. Just all kinds of coercive means. And it just seems like, especially with all the adverse reactions to the vaccine being reported, they'd be a little bit more cautious and a little more respectful of those people who are saying, I really don't want to get this shot, when you hear all these stories about people dropping dead. You know, the FDA lists 22 possible adverse effects from these vaccinations, including death. Okay, now after COVID, the Davos World Economic Forum is out there, you know, having their meeting this week. It's all virtual. They're doing it online. And apparently they're actually launching the plan for the Great Reset, which will be total global control and total control of the world's economy. So we'll see how far they get with that one. Yesterday, the Davos Summit convened online for the first time in its 50-year history in a bid to reshape the global economy in the wake of the pandemic. Now, apparently, in Davos, Switzerland, international leaders will be tuning in to discuss various responses to the pandemic. Director of the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Anthony Fauci, and Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis say that 3 times fast, are among the speakers. Okay, another article on this one. This is from Breitbart, no less. Basically saying that the World Economic Forum has revealed its Davos 2021 agenda, confirming the annual gathering of political and business elites next month will be a digital event, heralding the public unveiling of its Great Reset initiative. And in a preview to the digital Davos dialogues, the World Economic Forum says the time to rebuild trust and to make crucial choices is fast approaching as the need to reset priorities and the urgency to reform systems grows stronger around the world. Over in China, Xi Jinping is warning the Davos World Economic Forum against starting a new Cold War against China, and is urging global unity in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, having largely curbed the spread of COVID within its own borders, Xi wants to position China as a key player in a new multilateral world order as the U.S. remains crippled by the pandemic. And getting into other international news now, apparently Iran and China were caught red-handed in an illicit oil transfer off of Indonesia. Now, Iran is demanding answers from the Indonesian government after its Coast Guard seized an Iranian-flagged vessel off the coast over the weekend. The Indonesian Coast Guard said the tanker was caught red-handed in an illegal ship-to-ship oil transfer with a Panamanian-flagged tanker. Anyway. The U.S. is going to deploy B-1B Lancer strategic bombers to Norway for Arctic contention. Is there no place on Earth that they don't feel like fighting over? Anyway, the date of the arrival is not yet clear, but it's going to be somewhere in late week 7 or early in week 8. And they're going to be deploying these things to Norway to basically rattle the sabers at Russia here. Article coming on out from South Front talking about the vicious cycle of Middle Eastern diplomacy. And basically they're saying that this proxy war between Israel and Iran is unfolding with full speed. And the implication, of course, is that actual direct war between Israel and Iran may be on the horizon. But apparently the Israeli Defense Forces targeted various positions in Syria, allegedly damaging Iran's interest. In return, Tehran's allies and proxies target Israel's allies throughout various positions in the Middle East. And so they're definitely towing up here for something. Now, Joe Biden, according to an anonymous U.S. official, told Sky News Arabia Biden is seeking direct talks with Iran and pursuing that dialogue through European mediators. Yesterday, Iran's ambassador to the UN, Majid Takht Ravanchi, told NBC News that Iran had not yet spoken to the new administration. And when asked if Iran was planning to open up a direct dialogue with the U.S., Ravanchi said Iran is not planning to initiate anything. Now, a little bit of good news here. Looking to preempt hardliner member of parliament's warnings about expelling IAEA inspectors from Iran, the foreign ministry has issued a statement Monday insisting they have absolutely no intention of expelling any of the UN inspectors, even though it is the law. So they're trying to play nice here. Meanwhile, according to an article over in antiwar.com, the United States military is expanding its operations in Saudi Arabia, looking to establish bases in the western part of the country. Obviously, the eye is on Iran. Well, that's definitely going to happen. Here's where it gets really kind of tense. This is coming out of antiwar.com again. Israeli officials have made their opposition to the Biden administration returning to the Iran nuclear deal known. Some have even threatened a military strike on Iran if President Biden revives the joint comprehensive plan of action, otherwise known as the P5+1 deal. An Israeli source affirmed this to Breaking Defense in an article published yesterday. Israel needs to know and fast whether Washington plans to stop Iran's race to the bomb or take some action on this. Now, Israel has been claiming that Iran is trying to get a nuclear bomb for 30 years now, and they have not come up with any proof. All they've come up with are frauds like the laptop Odette, which turned out to be a complete hoax. Over in France, pardon me, they're running polls here, and apparently Macron, in the first polls, is losing to Marine Le Pen. And, Marine Le Pen is calling on France to abandon the catastrophic European Union. There was a new Harris Interactive poll commissioned by Comstrat Cabinet, and it found that depending upon the various potential candidates, Emmanuel Macron could lose to Marine Le Pen by a short header in the first round. So that would definitely start shaking things up. So we'll be talking about a Frexit here. Meanwhile, Italy is going to be heading toward its 132nd federal government in roughly 160 years as Prime Minister Mario Conte, who led Europe's third biggest economy through its most recent debt crisis, while also setting Italy on the path to closer cooperation with China, appears to be finito, at least for now. He is about to resign. And he's barely survived a handful of confidence votes, but apparently he's decided he's going to step down and focus on a political comeback, rebuilding his networks and forces, so forth and so on. There is still a lot of talk over in Russia about Alexei Navalny. He's going to be jailed for 30 days. And apparently all this fuss is over his jumping bail for some earlier situation, but he's been jailed for 30 days, and everybody's up in arms as allies are protesting here. Biden has demanded the unconditional release of Navalny after the Kremlin cracked down on protests and says, we are very concerned about Russia's behavior. I'm sure the feeling is entirely mutual at this point. Meanwhile, the Secretary of Russia's Security Council, Nikolai Patrushev, discussed extending the New START arms treaty in a phone call with the new U.S. National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. And this current treaty is due to expire on February 5th. It limits the United States and Russia to deploying no more than 1,550 strategic nuclear warheads each, which is more than enough to really ruin everybody's day. All right, apparently the European Union is now officially abandoning Juan Guaido. They are no longer recognizing him as Venezuela's interim president. So apparently they're backing off. They've repeated their calls for the freedom and safety of all political opponents. And it looks like maybe things might start to calm down there. Over in Taiwan, they have staged snap Air Force drills following the massive incursion of China's jets and bombers into their airspace. Well, that's getting tense over there. You can almost feel a new world war coming on here. All right, let's talk about the economy a little bit. The Washington Post, in a fact-check article aimed at Ted Cruz, actually admitted that Joe Biden killed off 11,000 construction jobs on his first day in office by canceling the Keystone XL pipeline contract. A little bit of a slip-up over there. Beijing Biden has rescinded President Trump's executive order banning Chinese involvement in our power grid. And this is another example of where Biden's contempt for Trump is leading him to make bad decisions, because I don't think we should have China involved in our power grid. It is a strategic asset. And with all this talk about cyber hacking and China's the bad guys, I don't think we need their hand on our power switch here. But Biden's, it's a bad decision, okay? Now, Russia is sending a note to the U.S. over the propagation of fake news stories by the corporate social media companies. And apparently they're very concerned over the involvement of U.S. internet platforms in propagating fakes about Russia. This according to Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova. And she said, we draw attention to our American colleagues to the fact, and a corresponding note will be sent to them over the participation of internet platforms of U.S. companies, social networks, and video hosting services in propagating fakes. Notably, it was not a single case. It is a massive propagation of fakes. Janet Yellen has been confirmed as the U.S. Treasury Secretary, and apparently 16 Republicans voted against her. Marco Rubio missed the vote, but she did get the majority, and she did get confirmed. Biden has signed an order boosting federal spending on U.S. products. Now, this I agree with. This is a good thing for Biden to be doing. And he signed his much previewed Buy American executive order yesterday, which will boost federal agencies' purchases of U.S. products. And I absolutely agree with this. Of course, countries that export those products to the United States are unhappy at that. But tough cookies, I'm sorry. You know, America first. In this one case, you know, Biden is going to make America great again. Japan is still talking about canceling the summer games this year because of the COVID-19 outbreak. But apparently down in Florida, a top official has informed the International Olympic Committee that Florida is ready to host the summer games if Japan does decide to drop out. And that would sound really good. The Olympics is a big party, but unfortunately, it tends overall to be a money loser. Still in all, you know, nice of them to do that here. AMC Entertainment Holdings, which is you know, movie theater chain, they've raised nearly $1 billion in funding to survive the pandemic winter, and says that there is no possibility of bankruptcy in their future. Well, I'm glad they were able to do that. We've had too many bankruptcies here. Apparently, Biden is planning to use federal tax dollars to pay for Governor Newsom's homeless hotels out in California. This is out in San Francisco. They've basically grabbed some hotels that are housing homeless people, and they may be fully funded by the federal government this year. Under the order, certain kinds of emergency housing for the homeless are eligible to be fully reimbursed through September. I have an interesting little theory. I mean, if these homeless people are being housed in the hotel, doesn't that constitute an address, a place of residence where they could like actually go out and look for work? Anyway, we've got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back. They're all moving to the new potential tech hubs of tomorrow, such as Austin, Texas, and Miami, Florida. And according to one former San Francisco executive, he said, what else can God and the world and government come up with to make the place less livable? And it had to be a fast deterioration because Claire and I were there 2003 when I worked on Day After Tomorrow. And you know, I like the place, but apparently it's just become this real problem here. Over in Miami, Mayor Francis Suarez is fielding inquiries from people like Tesla CEO Elon Musk, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, and apparently a whole bunch of others. And there goes a lot of San Francisco's tax base. And again, fine Democrat-run city. Article coming on out from Zero Hedge. Apparently the currency wars are back. And if you don't understand what that means, a currency war is a conflict between nations trying to artificially devalue their domestic currency in order to be more competitive internationally, to also hurt their opponents, and using the currency to make other nations less competitive while at the same time weakening their power. So apparently The Biden administration is getting ready to devalue the United States dollar. That's going to be a real hit on the tourism industry in other countries here. Apparently, according to a story over, it's a YouTube video here, seed companies are warning of shortages and delays. So if you are, in fact, a heritage farmer, you may want to start thinking about building up your stockpile of seeds as quickly as you can from other sources, local sources. This is part of that rush to everybody has to be GMO. Meanwhile, over in China, a high-ranking official said that China must embrace a whole country approach and mobilize the nation's private businesses to reduce reliance on foreign technologies amid ongoing U.S. sanctions that restrict China's access to advanced equipment and devices. They're out there pushing on that one here. Okay, let's talk about immigration a little bit as we head up to the top of the hour. Apparently, the border wall contractors have been told to stop construction tonight. And so that's it. The wall is not completely built. There's a huge hole in it through which the illegal immigrants will continue to pour. Meanwhile, a federal judge in Texas, U.S. District Judge Drew Tipton, has temporarily blocked Joe Biden's executive order to halt the deportation of certain immigrants for 100 days. Okay, we're going to take a break for station identification. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines. Area code 512-248-8252, and we will be right back. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, area code 512-248-8252, and we're going to go to the phones to CJ in North Carolina. Hello, CJ. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Oh, well, hope you're doing well today, Mike. I was just listening to that, you were talking about the border wall.
Yes.
I mean, what a great time to just let millions of people in here when we have millions of people out of work. How's that work?
Well, it doesn't make any sense to me, but then I'm not in control, unfortunately.
Right, yeah, none of us are. In fact, talking about control, as I'm thinking that, all these states are in debt.
Yes.
And we sort of seen a little bit of it with Zuckerberg during the election, but when these states get in massive trouble with the debt, these oligarch big tech owners can come up and say, well, hey, if you need $10 billion, I can loan you $10 billion, but you just got to do what I say.
Yes.
I see that coming.
Well, we already get that from the Federal Reserve.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, well, the stock market has been communized. All the stocks own each other.
Yes.
And that stifles innovation because if you have a crappy product and everybody's buying your competitors' products, you don't have to innovate. All you got to do is buy your competitor's stock.
Yes.
And we've got... I mean, if you buy Microsoft, you're buying Facebook and Amazon, and if you buy Amazon, you're buying Microsoft and Facebook, and actually did a report on this a while back. I was trying to get the word out that, everybody says, oh, I'm going to quit Facebook. And they quit them, but they don't, 99.99% of the people don't realize they have 401k money allocated to these companies every month. They give their money to a fund manager and say, well, you just invest it. I don't want to do that. And the fund manager invests the money in these big tech stocks.
Okay.
And there is, like I said, I did some research on it, and it's about 99.9% of people with the 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it weird how the power outages that were going on around election time, how they seem to have all gone away now?
Yeah, you noticed that, did you?
I did. And see, that's why I would never like to have an electric vehicle. Because if they can control your power, then they can control where you can go.
Yes.
And so that's the drawback I'm seeing on that. Yeah, so that's what I got for you today. It looks like hydrogen might be trying to make a little bitty comeback. Hydrogen energy.
Yep.
You read up anything on that, or?
There was an article that came through what really happened, I think, last week, talking about a renewed push for hydrogen technology.
Right. Yeah. I know when the guy. Do you remember the hydrogen car the guy invented?
It's well, you need to be careful because there's the reverse electrolysis system, which actually produces much less power than is used to create the hydrogen in the first place. In the current push, it's hydrogen as a combustible fuel.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know the guy that had the hydrogen car when everybody was raving about it 10 years ago. The guy got murdered. But, all right, I enjoy your show. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate your drive and stick to this, man. Really do.
Well, thank you. I didn't think I was going to have to stick to it quite this long. We're going to switch over to Mary in Virginia. Hello, Mary. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Baby, it's cold outside.
Yes, it is. Especially for us Hawaii transplants.
Inside. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Hey, yeah. Everyone's trying to solve man's problems with man. Do you not agree?
I'm not exactly sure what that statement means.
Well, meaning our country is more or less, my personal belief, our country is blessed by mature believers in Christ. And as they die off, we die off. Unless we get to our cross, we're done. So we can't blame the guy next door, the president, can't blame anyone but the man or woman in the mirror or whatever. Okay?
Okay.
It's that simple. So this generation, 74 to 55, is the third generation curse who is screwed everyone else in the past because we have not matured as believers in Christ. So when you want to point the finger, Democrat, Republican, point it to yourself because you did not mature in your Christ, your kingdom. You did not pick up your cross. That's why we're going down. Evil 1 will overrun evil 2. It's biblical. Okay?
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for the insight. Thank you for the insight. I said thank you for the insight. And thank you for the phone call. And we're going to switch over to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Tom, are you there? We lost Tom. All right. Put his face on a milk carton here. And let's go to Sebastian in Sweden. Hello, Sebastian. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. I'm sure Tom will come again.
I'm sure he will.
I always like listening to Tom. I just wanted to tell you that 23 in Sweden, I think they gave the vaccine to maybe 180,000, and 23 have died because of the vaccine.
Yes.
And the youngest was in his 60s, and he had high fever, and then it was just sudden death. And that's what they said at the Swedish equivalent to the CDC. But I want to come up with something else that's happened to me, actually. Yesterday, I tried to get into my bank.
Yes.
To pay a couple of bills over the internet. And I couldn't get in. And I finally got in this morning. And then I heard later that it was down again today. and that this bank has been taking money from people that, pro-Swedish, Swedish Democrats and Swedish culture, and just populists. And they took their YouTubes off around Christmas.
Yes.
Off of YouTube, and they took away their accounts and Facebook, et cetera, just like they did to Donald Trump in the States.
Yes.
And finally, it seems like we have a hacker that was on our side over here, and I think it's pretty good. I think it just shows them, because they confiscated money from they wouldn't let them come into this bank. So I think it's a good thing. And I was hoping, and wow, just think if there's hackers around the world that could hack down Google, Facebook, and Twitter. I would love that.
Well, Facebook got hacked a few days ago. Planted porn all over the place.
Sorry?
I said Facebook got hacked a few days ago, and somebody planted a whole bunch of porn on it.
Aha! I didn't know that. I haven't heard about that. Anyway, I read one paper, and it's published in Tallinn in Estland, because we're not allowed to read any papers here. It's got everything has to be mainstream,
Yes.
So it has to be published in another country so they can have the server there, so they can't get to the server and shut it down. But that's all I want to have is to say, let Tom come up again.
He's back. He's waiting in line.
Okay, take care, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And we're going to switch over to Joe in California. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Oh, hey, Mike. Yeah, that's good. Tom's back. I was a little worried. I thought he might have been our first martyr. So, because
John in Barbados was our first martyr.
Yeah, that's true. But Tom is quite popular among the traditionalists, the populists. But I think a dream ticket for 2024 would be Tom and Marco, and their slogan would be their slogan will be, "We'll finish what Trump started."
Dude. You forgot the dude.
Gotta get that dude in. Marco is great. He's got a great voice for radio. It's a cross between Jesse Ventura and Randy the Macho Man Savage.
Okay.
But before I get to my main point, Mike, I just want to say it was another brilliant call from Layla at the end of yesterday's show. I really think she should have her own show. Something she can touch on history, current events. And Layla, if you're listening, my marriage proposal still stands. So just wanted to get that out there. As far as China, Mike, this is absolute hogwash, what President Xi said. In my opinion, this whole COVID outbreak, this whole pandemic was a cooperative effort between China and the globalists. I mean, you can point to the 2010 Rockefeller lockstep document, the Event 201, the way the globalists are trying to leverage this whole thing to transform the world. I don't think there's any doubt. That's why when I get a little upset when I hear people say it was just China. I don't think so. I think it was China working with people like Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and Soros. I think it was a dual effort between the two parties. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I'm still of the opinion that it was a bioweapon in development, not a very good one, and somebody dropped a test tube. But I know a lot of people think it was deliberately released. I certainly know that it's been exploited politically and economically. Now all of a sudden we have everybody saying you have to wear 2 masks, and I assume that they have bought stock in the mask-making companies.
Yeah, and that was good news, that story you mentioned about that Texas judge, blocking his fraudulencies executive order. That's nice to see, because we recall how many times these liberal judges did the same to Trump throughout his tenure. So that's all. Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, and we're going to go to Tom in Florida. Welcome back. We missed you, and what is on your mind today?
Yeah, Mike. Well, by the way, Joe, come on, man. Listen, Joe, if I got a lawn service business, I'd call it Joe Schmoes. I really would. I think that'd be a great idea. You know, I'm going to maybe start thinking about it. I've been thinking, Mike, to get in a lawn service business, hire some illegals. Why not? You know, and by the way, Mike, the reason I never got into lawn service because I work for the federal government. I got a federal pension, federal government job. Smart thing, huh? That was pretty smart of me, right?
Yep.
1 year, Mike. High rail voltage, you know, technician. So anyway, listen, you know, to the first caller that you called that called in today is talking about immigration. But before I go there, and I want to talk to the lady that called in after. She was talking about we lost Christianity. Well, if you look at Hollywood, who's running it? Who runs Hollywood, man?
Yes.
You got to remember who's running Hollywood. Those people, that religion doesn't even believe in Jesus Christ. To him, he was just a prophet. Okay, so let's just go right there. We know who's running Metro Goldwyn Mayer and Warner Brothers and all these other ones. Come on. So go figure that one, Mike. Well, now let me get back to yesterday real quick, Mike. Then I'm going to hit what I got to hit on. But, you know, yesterday you had a guy from Maine picking on another guy from Maine, calling the guy from Maine, the good guy from Maine, or they're both good. Everybody's good. All the callers are good. But this guy's basically calling the guy from Maine, he called him a cultist. Like, or me and this guy from Maine are in a cult because we like Trump. Well, what is this guy thinking he is? And to me, he looks like he might be in the cabal. Okay, so anybody who didn't vote for Trump, I look at them like they're in the cabal. They voted for that bumbling buffoon Biden with the commie Kamala Harris. Commie Camilla. Okay? So, you know, the guy's throwing out the one guy from Maine, calling him and me a cultist, but this guy's a cabalist. Okay? And I'm not a cultist. I'm a guy like the one guy, the young man that calls in, and we love our country. And you know what? Illegal immigration is going to wipe our ass out. Excuse my French, Mike. It's going to wipe us out. We are going to get wiped out by these illegals. And that's the main thing I call. That should be every one of your callers' main concern. Do you want to be like California? I don't think Joe ever talks too much how many millions of illegals are in his state.
Never mind California. Do we want to be like Zimbabwe and South Africa?
Well, Joe's making us like California. And I bet you if Joe had to go to the hospital in California, he'd be treated worse than an illegal alien. I bet an illegal alien, those 8 or 9 million, would get treated quite well. But I don't think he would. You'd tell him to stay out in the hall and die. Way down the hall. I mean, come on. Now, this is what your show is like, and you're the best show on there because you do let us vent and get our frustrations out about illegal immigration, Mike. No other show, well, there's a couple other guys at RBN, but mainly you. And you know what? We are being overrun with the illegal immigration. Let alone, Mike, let's talk about this. Legal immigration. Do we really need legal immigration? We need a moratorium for 20 years. We don't even need legal immigration, Mike. There's only one. You know what, Mike? Like you said years ago, we don't even have 2 million people in the agricultural industry. So what are these people doing? They're not all doing lawn service business because let me tell you, if it's lucrative, I'm going to jump into it like Joe says. I'm going to call Joe Schmoes, get the mow done. Certainly. I mean, come on. I think all kinds of things. And look, Mike, there's a lot of white and black guys who love to have lawn service. They make pretty good money. Don't kid yourself. I know a couple of white guys own the lawn services down here. One's name is Trim. I don't even tell you the first thing. Rights, but you know this guy. He makes good money. A good friend of mine makes quite good money in the lawn service business. Believe it or not, tree business too, cutting trees. So anyway, now here's what I want to roll on, Mike, real quick. I know you got other calls, but I'm going to get going. First off, the guy called in, the first guy about immigration. He's absolutely right. We have no jobs. You got this bumbling buffoon Biden wants to stop the wall, knowing that the wall works, but this buffoonery wants to flood Texas and Arizona to make them permanently blue. Just like those New England states, Mike, and I always said from this election day on, this was a stolen election, and the white women would have had to go 75% for Biden to him to win. They rigged this election. Because does the white Anglo women in this country want to see their cultural identity wiped out? Are they that hateful of their white male counterparts that would want to wipe their country out, their history and everything, burning down like Seattle, Portland, all these Philadelphia murder rates. Chicago had another 30. I mean, it's crazy. You don't even know the figure in Chicago, the crime rate anymore over there. They need to bring the National Guard in there every weekend. That's how crazy it is over there. But Mike, here in South Florida, I want you to know. And then I'm going to talk about Twitter and Facebook, those disgusting rats, and Bloomberg. But, you know, here's South Florida, Mike. We've had they don't talk about it much, but South Florida had a pretty high murder rate in 2020. They have something they haven't had in 5 years. Their murder rate has gone up quite substantially. From South Florida here was under 100, but now it's almost to 200. It's a little over 200 now. So that's South Florida. So the crime rate has gone up in the last year. But now, Mike, Have you seen the news today about on Breitbart and Newsmax about Twitter, Facebook, and Google? How much money they gave Biden for this election?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, they were definitely on his side the whole time.
Oh, and Bloomberg and this guy Steyer, they're all Jews, Mike. Except you got it. Well, you got this Dorsey. He's an dirty Irish like Biden. You got this. He's a filthy Irishman like Biden. You got this guy, this Arab that runs Google. I think it's Google or one of them. Then of course you got the Zuckerberg, and then you got all these other schmucks. Mike, they're running our narrative. They're running the country.
Yes.
So my point is, I know what it is.
Are you okay? You sound like you're having a problem.
No, I'm fine.
All right,
maybe
take
Joe's right.
deep breath and slow down.
No, I got to drink a little water. The point of the
Well,
matter,
actually,
Mike,
we're coming up on the end of your call anyway.
Well, yeah, Mike, I'll make it quick. The point of the matter is you got callers that call your show. They pick out guys like Marco or me, and I hope Kevin calls in. He's a great caller. We need to have him call because he hasn't called in quite a while. I hope he calls in. I hope Kevin from West Virginia calls. But, yeah, Mike, they just totally want to manipulate the white Northern European males and wipe us out. That's exactly what they're doing.
It certainly looks like it. It certainly does. Okay, Tom, I got to let you go. We got to take a break. We got to take a break. We've got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show now. We're going to go back to the phones to Kelly in Austin. Hello, Kelly. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Sometime earlier in the program, someone asked why would Biden open the gates to unfettered immigration?
Yes.
In a country when there are millions of other Americans unemployed and on assistance. Well, it goes back to the Cloward-Piven theory or strategy, and that is to overload the system such that it can't support all the demands for assistance. And at that point, the whole system will collapse.
Okay.
I mean, it's apparent to me, and I've looked at several sources on this over time. And today, when I heard that question, I went back into the Oath Keepers website,
yeah,
various other websites, and I looked at what they were at the description here, and it's consistent with what I've heard before, and it's consistent with what we see happening now. And so the objective is to create a crisis, a nationwide crisis in this case. And so if you flood the nation now, the country with millions more people who are coming in, are going to drive down wages, put more people out of work. That's going to increase the demand for government assistance. And ultimately, it just creates a situation in which the system cannot support everything. And ultimately, it leads to a point at which the system collapses.
Okay.
That was the strategy. That was the strategy that was developed by there were two Columbia University sociologists. There was a husband and wife team, Andrew Cloward and his wife, what was his name? Her name, Frances Piven. Let me just read a sentence from here. It says the Cloward-Piven strategy seeks to hasten the fall of capitalism by overloading the government bureaucracy with a flood of impossible demands, thus pushing society into a crisis and economic collapse. And they can do that from a number of reasons. They can do that by creating chaos within the system, and they can flood the country with illegal aliens.
Okay.
To me, what's happening with the Biden administration and its embrace of unfettered immigration, or migration, as he likes to call it, is exactly that. I think that they're absolutely hostile to our republic and to capitalism, and what they seek to do is to bring it down. As capitalism as we know it, of course, the elite are not going to suffer from that because they're going to survive. No. But everybody else is going to be herded into multifamily barracks, whatever else, and we'll be fed what they give us, and we'll be expected to live as they tell us to live. And if we have good social credit scores, we'll be allowed to walk around from time to time. But having unfettered immigration into your country, into the country, is a I think, a primary driver behind what they want to accomplish here in this country. Now, have you not heard of Cloward Piven?
No, I hadn't.
Have you not heard of Cloward?
You know, and it sounds like a really theory.
Well, it goes back. The theory itself. They concocted this theory back around 1965, and it's been cited time and time again by the Democratic Socialists of America as a basis for their goal of transforming American society.
Okay.
And frankly, I think if you look at what Barack Obama tried to do, I think a lot of what he wanted to do encompassed the Cloward Piven strategy of overloading the system. So I encourage you. You can get on any search engine, but I can refer you to several sites right now, or I'll send you the links.
If you could email me the links, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I will. But people need to be aware of this. This is a well thought out strategy, and it looks like it's going to be a well executed strategy if Biden is allowed to get away with that. That will further drive the American economic system to collapse. That's what they want.
Well,
and again, the elite are going to survive it.
Yes, of course.
You think Bill Gates is worried about that?
No, he's not.
No. You know, but I mean, I have what I have. I've worked all my life for it, and I have a very nice nest egg. But that can very easily disappear.
Yes.
If this happens, and I look at all the other millions of people in this country who are not as well off as I am, and I know that they're in a more precarious position than I am. But I stand to lose just about everything I have if this works. And tens of millions.
I think that's true for pretty much all of Americans. Okay, Kelly, I got to let you go. We got to take another break for commercials. Back with more phone calls after these few words. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Layla in Canada. Hello, Layla. Your ears must be burning. Everybody's talking about you. What's on your mind today?
Oh, no, actually, I just tuned in because I just came back from the bank to get a money order for RBN.
Well, thank you very much for your support.
Well, you guys deserve it. It's, as I say, it's been uplifting for me. Without having RBN, I would have felt far more isolated and lonely than I do feel. However, I've got some really good news. I don't think you've had a chance to look at the email I just sent you about what the former leader of the Reform Party of Canada has done. He's written a really effective letter to the Canadian Justice Minister and Attorney General demanding that or at least asking. He's a very, Preston Manning is a very polite and honorable man. He has outlined numerous aspects very comprehensively of all the violations of the rights and freedoms of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms contains that are being violated by the government's actions. Please look at that email, and if you would, please consider posting it. But I just want to point out a couple of the primary points. Section 2 apparently allows us freedom of conscience and religion, which is violated by the restriction on religious gatherings. 2B, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression is violated when officials dismiss the opinions of others and also encourage the banishment from social media platforms of those expressing different perspectives on how the COVID crisis should be handled.
Okay.
Further, the colleges of physicians and surgeons are government bodies to which the Charter applies. When they send threatening letters to physicians for having publicly expressed their opinions about the grave harms that lockdowns are inflicting on Canadians, and 2C is freedom of peaceful assembly, and in 2D, freedom of association. The letter goes on, not only outlining all the violations that are occurring, but also requesting that alternate opinions from not just medical experts, but other fields that are affected, such as society, education, and all the other fields also be consulted, and that they then give clear and explanatory positions on why such extraordinary measures are required, identify the nature and magnitude of the anticipated impacts of such measures, propose concrete measures for mitigating. So it's a wonderful, please post it to your website if you can.
I'm still trying to hunt it down.
A good sign.
I'm still trying to find it. I'm looking through my mailbox now.
Okay, what should I put in the subject line? So it's in the National Post, just nationalpost.com. And you'll see it immediately. I believe it should still be the lead, the top article.
Okay.
So have you found it yet? No? Okay. What should I put in the subject line?
From Layla.
From Layla. Okay. It's really. I just hope that the U.S. begins to recognize that the same violations are occurring there, especially when the U.S. has the concept of the government serving we the people, whereas that doesn't exist in Canada, where we still belong lock, stock, and barrel to the British royal firm. But the other thing I wanted to discuss, very briefly, I promise, is the concept of Christianity being destroyed. That goes back to the 50s.
Yes.
And I remember as a child in the earlier mid-50s when toys were being handed out where you pull a string and it says, Merry Xmas.
Yes.
And Christians began to object. You cannot take Christ out of Christmas. And the excuse was X stood for the X in Greek. However, in Greek, it's
the Chi.
Christo, or Christo. And so that was, it goes way, people blame Muslims for the lack of recognizing that Christ as the central concept of Christmas, yet it goes back to the ACLU in the 50s. And we can only guess who felt most offended by it.
Okay.
Are there any other subjects I can... I didn't hear what other callers might have said. Is there anything I might be able to address?
We've been talking about immigration. We've been talking about the Cloward Piven theory of bringing down capitalism by stressing the system with immigration. I just put up the Wikipedia article on that theory for those who want to look at that. And otherwise, if you want to head along, you can head along because I got a bunch of callers here.
Okay, I think the idea of immigration may be a double-edged sword for the Democrats. If a lot of them are legitimate migrants who are coming to care for their families or earn money to care for their families, they're going to have conservative ideologies, conservative principles. Once they start working and feel secure, they may actually be a source of support in the future for the Republican Party or whichever other party replaces the existing Republican Party. Okay. They're going to be Christian. They're going to have, and even if they're not Christian, they're going to have the values that Christianity teaches. They're going to be very supportive of family structures. Otherwise, why would they be seeking jobs to support their families back there? And that really, I think, and the fact that they want to work, that's the other thing. I mean, I have to say that I have noticed when I go to grocery stores or anywhere else where I'm shopping, the immigrants that are now working there are so much more courteous than the ones who were there before. Our longtime Canadians who became so pampered by unions and their constant reference to, I have rights and you can't fire me because of the union. How many times I heard that? I can't even count the times. But they are so much more courteous, so eager to work, to help. And I'm not just talking about Hispanics. I'm talking about people from India and other Asian countries. So let's see who they bring in, and if they are indeed the kind of people who destroy the qualities that made the U.S. how great it was, then we can go back to the original intent. Because I don't know how.
Well, I think what we need to do.
Obligation.
All we need to do is look in places like California that has been accepting the illegal immigrants for many years now, and look at what the quality of life has become out there, especially San Francisco, where it's reached the point where the tech titans are starting to flee the city. They're heading down to Austin and Miami because San Francisco has just become unlivable.
May I ask, was California beginning to deteriorate even before because of its, I don't want to sound like I'm homophobic, but it's, what is the word I'm looking for?
Gay?
Where you engage yourself, no, not gay, but where people engage in the immediate pursuit of pleasures without any consideration for the future.
Well, you need to remember the state's name. Okay. Remember the state's name. It's California. Cali is from calorie, meaning heat. Fornia, as in fornication. Therefore, California, the land of hot sex.
Yeah. So maybe it's not just maybe the kind of immigrants that have been attracted to California are those who would feel comfortable in that environment. Those who move to other states may be looking for places where they feel that they can actually pursue jobs. They won't all be bad.
Yeah, but we have so many Americans. We have so many Americans who are currently out of work, and we need to take care of them first.
I know.
Okay? And if you
absolutely. I'm one of the first. I absolutely agreed. The idea that the Canadian military was forced to move out of one of the barracks to make room for migrants was infuriating. That they put them up in the best of hotels and we taxpayers have paid for it here in Canada is infuriating.
Yes.
No, I don't like that at all. The fact that my son paid off a $95,000 student loan, he's now expected to pay for other people's children to have free education. He can't even afford his own kids because he says he's taking care of the world's kids. So no, there are a lot of violations. But once they're here, what do? Do we kill them? Do we fight with them and throw them out? Or is there any way to stop them from coming over the border? Unlikely now that Biden is in control.
Unfortunately, he's halted the border wall construction. The work stops tonight. And, there's still a big gap there that the illegals and, the people smugglers and everything can bring them on through. And, fortunately, we do have that federal judge who just blocked Biden's executive order to halt deportations for 100 days. So there are some people starting to push back.
That's good news. And I remember when this first started, I did mention on your show that I thought people themselves, if the military would not go down and block the illegals from coming over, that people themselves, if somebody tried to violate my private property, I would stand on the edge and say, get off my property. So I felt all along.
There was a group in Arizona that tried to do that. There was, a group of landowners whose property was right on the border, and they sort of got together and organized. The federal government basically shut them down, saying you can't do that. Anyway, Layla, I need to let you go here. We're getting close to the end of the show, and I got a bunch of callers waiting on the line. Thank you very much, and we're going to switch to Mark in North Carolina. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Hey, Mike,
doing fine.
I just want to say one thing quickly to Tom. Tom, the biggest enemy of Northern white Europeans are Northern white Europeans for not having enough children and rather, enriching themselves or whatever else. And this not only in the United States, but this is also in Europe. Prime example is Germany. First of all, they've got this disgusting woman there who first ruined Germany by opening up the floodgates, talking about immigrants and all that. And second of all, is now has this horrible lockdown going on. She couldn't care less about children. She probably hates having children because she hasn't had any herself. Okay. Of course, I'm talking about Merkel. And
Yes.
the same thing goes on in places like France, and goes on in Sweden, is going on in England. All right, and most of these leaders don't have any kids themselves. As far as Biden goes, Biden is just the man's a worn-out Hulk. Probably doesn't even know what he's doing. And they're destroying this country in many different ways. It's not only whether they're going to open up the borders or not. By the way, I didn't even know about that judge that put a stop there to Biden's order there. That's what people think. That's what needs to end. You need to start lawfare. The same thing they did to Trump when he first took over. They went to their judges. Got to go to our judges. Trump, at least, if nothing else, Trump put a lot of supposedly conservative judges in there while he was president.
Yeah, but you need to remember, you need to remember that when you file a lawsuit, the judge is supposedly selected at random. Although looking at how Trump faced an endless stream of liberal judges, I think they hacked that system as well.
Oh no, they know how to judge shop. Believe me, they know exactly how to judge shop. How they do it exactly, but they know exactly when, at what point to point which judge. So they know, and got to learn the same thing. Especially now, this clown is doing so many executive orders. And as far as the COVID goes, I listened to Stephen Bannon today, Kay Bannon.
Yes.
This War Room, I think it is. And these people, he had this guy Navarro on, who was in Trump's cabinet, I believe, Peter Navarro. And this guy is running scared of these new COVIDs that's supposedly coming out of South America and South Africa and England. Okay. They're going along with the scare tactics. They think the Earth is coming to an end, I guess. All right, and they have no problem with vaccines, these horrible vaccines that I hold Trump personally responsible for his Operation Warp Speed. Okay.
Yes.
It's terrible. I mean, both sides are messed up. We really need is a real populist to take over in this country, and only somebody like that can save the country. All right, not a we can't have you've got to have somebody who's going to take on big business. You've got to have somebody who's going to take on these big corporations, smash them to bits if necessary. All right, and stop worrying about them being called a socialist or a ist of any kind. Look out for the best interests of America. If that means, the government smashing these big corporations into little pieces, good. All right? I don't care about big corporations. The only thing I care about is small business. Small business and the working man. That's what should be looked out for, not the big corporations. Okay? It is, like I said, we talk about capitalism. This is the worst type of capitalism. It's predatory capitalism. Okay? And that's got to be stopped. Got to be smashed, because that's what's destroying this country. It's destroying everything about us, and we also got to be fruitful and multiply. That's another thing. Okay. Stop. There's no reason. Every family should have, if possible, at least 2 children, and preferably more. Okay. That should be the goal.
All right.
American family. Okay, and that's about all I got to say, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Ken in Florida. And Ken, I'm going to have to take you through the commercial break. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. Republicans aren't the brightest bulbs, so maybe they need to be told this. But now, as we've seen with the voting scandal, fraudulent voting, maybe they need to be told that now put the pedal to the metal and cheat like hell themselves. Red counties and red states, red counties and blue states, if you think can get away with it, cheat like crazy. If they get their candidate elected, great. But if not, if they show just how bad the system's broken, that's even better. So, again, maybe they need to be told this, but it's open season apparently on voting fraud. So just go for it.
All right. Well, thank you very much here. We got to take a break for commercials. More phone calls when we come back. And welcome back to our show here. Last segment of our program today. We're going to try and fit in 2 more phone calls. Tom in Indiana, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch CNN, but CNN has shifted from the election fraud to blaming it to anti-Semitic people. They've been they have had people that have come on the show with Jewish-sounding names and saying this thing at the Capitol is just against Jewish people. You know, and a lot of the people that are in the Capitol have dual citizenships, as you know.
Yes.
That's one of the things I wanted to tell you. The other thing I wanted to tell you, in Indianapolis, they had 6 people shot dead with a Draco pistol. And I think that the Draco pistol is a pistol that the kid that shot him with could not buy, or anybody in his family could buy, unless it was his father. So they're probably going to have one of these several big shows on the Draco pistol, which is a small AK-47 pistol.
Oh,
I just wanted to get you those 2. I didn't want to be long-winded like some of the other people, and so I wish you well today. Thank you, my friend.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Dean in California. Hello, Dean. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. I just wanted to call in and chat a bit about the Cloward and Piven strategy, which I believe goes way back to even before it was really established as a principle. And it was the welfare system that it's been based off of course. And every other system seems pretty much the same kind of abuse, but this has been really hidden from us. And yeah, every time I start thinking about what's going on in our world right now, I go, God, just Cloward and Piven showing its ugly head and plowing us under with this so-called welfare state that was created to help people in the United States. Of course, it's now being overrun by all these immigrants.
Yes.
And I look around me. I live in California, and I grew up here, and my family actually settled here. And I remember not seeing any different kinds of people around other than just who looked like me, John and Dick, Tom and Dick, and so on. But now I live on a street where I'm the only white guy, and all the names are just mispronounceable to me. I can't find them all. And I think of all the people they're bringing in, like their grandparents and their parents and stuff. And those people will go on the medical system. It's the same kind of system where, if you don't have the funds, you'll get it taken care of somehow. And of course, who's left with the bill? We're all holding the bag on everything that's come out in these kinds of systems. And I like to always say that they get a hold of the pinch points on every situation. It's like a Vienna a trading post for everything nowadays, where they've gotten a hold of the medical system, they've gotten a hold of the governments, they've gotten a hold of the media and the banking system and so on. And, we're just beholden to these systems now, but people have to really wake up and start talking about it. And
I agree.
That's the thing that I really, and it's got to be organic, because obviously we've been lied to ever since, the 50s or so, at least on TV.
Okay, Dean, I got to let you go. We're at the end of the show here, Dean. I'm sorry for cutting you off here. All right, stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.